Hi everyone. Today let's gonna do another round of app critique. I think someone just commented on my YouTube channel and asked me to critique this app, Apple Map. I think that would be very interesting, app critique if we compare this application with the Google Map, right? So let's go. So this is the map icon. I won't say too much about it. I think it represents the map, this stuff like very clearly by using this section of the real map. It has the road sign and also it has the direction. It just highly indicates what the user gonna see in the actual UI. So that part is done greatly. I think the only thing that's not that prominent is it's a little bit too colorful. So I would say that it's really hard to draw the audience attention at the first sight. So let's go click it. So once we click it, we go to the first screen, and this is the main screen of using an app. And once we see this first screen, of course, we want to ask the most primary question: what's the problem that it's trying to solve? So in this application, Map is actually an application that helping the user to find the route from the departure to the destination. And usually, the map will provide multiple routes so that the user can just pick one that best fit their requirement. So that's usually the functionality wise, that's usually the functionality of the of the map application. But of course, so we can expand it more. So let's just assume that's the main feature that the user wants to use it. But of course, if we are in a real scenario, if we're in a real design scenario, and then we probably want to do some test, some kind of like user interview or some kind of research to figure out what's the primary use case that once a user try to use this map. And also we want to dig a little bit more about something that's very very specific. So we cannot just find out, okay, the user just wants to go from here to there. That's just too vague. We want to figure out in what kind of circumstance, they are trying to find they're trying to find a place, for example, the closest Walmart, or they already have an idea about their destination. They just don't know the route, or it's like they have clear, or it's like they don't care. They're probably just planning a road trip. So there are so many different kind of use cases, and we definitely want to categorize those use cases into primary one, secondary one, and what's the largest portion of the user that we want to satisfy, and also if we are improving our design, that's which group of user we want to target on. Like we are gonna target more on the existing users, or we are targeting on the new users so that they can have a smooth smooth experience once they first get on this app. So even though I would prefer to critique the feature wise first, but this icon really draws me attention. So I really want to talk a little bit about those icons. So first of all, we see those big blue icons. They are under this grayish background. I would say that Apple is very good at visual design, and this icon is using a solid line, solid shapes to form the icon. But if we can see at the top corner, these icons actually using the hollow shapes, and also we can see that they are using the lines to form the icon. So the icon component or the element, the element in those icons are different. They are not consistent. I'm not sure whether that's intended or that's not. So I wonder what's the reason behind that. And also, even though it's usually good to have a bigger touch area, but this icon is just relevantly too huge. Compared to this screen, you can see that it draws too much attention. I'm not sure whether that's intended or not. If that's intended, then does it mean that this is the place we want the user to focus on rather than the search area? Then does it mean that the user will try to find out, some their favorite destination in most use cases, rather than to, to search for a place which they only have an address, and that's probably something new to them, not their daily routine. So yeah, so I'm just curious why the icon is designing this way, and if you want me to be very picky into the visual design, we can see this plus button. It looks relatively small, compared to other icons. So, and also this little handbag icon is a little bit too wide compared to this home one, even though we know that this handbag is supposed to be a rectangular shape rather than a cube shape. But that in terms of the volume, the feeling of the size is still relatively bigger compared to the other two icons. So I would say that part could be improved a little bit. And then let's go back to the feature-wise. So as we say that we can assume that on the first screen, the user's main task or the main functionality is allowing the user to find out the route from this place to another place, right? So then how the user to do that? And then there's a search bar over here. I think it's good to have the map at the top, which indicating where the user is currently at, and having all the other clickable area or touchable area, tangible area at the bottom, which is in the finger touching accessible place, which is good. But on the other hand, we need to think a little bit more about the context of this, the usage context of this app. Like when and where the user will use this app. Will the user use this app usually at their home, like holding this phone, like just like what I'm doing right now? Have two hands holding the same phone, of course the same phone, or have two hands to hold different phones. That would be interesting. Anyway, no jokes. Or the user will prefer to use one hand to operate this screen, or it's like the phone is fixed on the panel of the car, and then the user is using the user is using the index finger to touch the screen, to do the interaction. When and where is really important once we try to design or try to critique this app. So as I don't know the exact data, but let's just assume all of our users, they are just great drivers. They don't like to touch their phone while they're driving. So once they're using their phone, they prefer to use their one hand to hold their phone and use their finger, the thumb, to do the interaction. If that's really the case, and then I would say that this is designed greatly because because the search bar is just at some place very easy to access. But on the other hand, I would say that this is a place, clearly indicating the user can enter an address. But then I would say that will the user really understand they are entering the destination address or the departure address? Is it clear enough, or will the user get confused about what they are typing in? So I just don't know that part, but I think if I'm a designer, I would like to have a user test to see how will the user perceive this search bar. So will they type in their departure place rather than their destination place? So, and also below that, this is a next transaction. We can see that here visually it only shows part of the cell, so that it indicates something more is below that area. And also you can see the transition has some kind of like smooth animation, so that it's not that boring, and it just feels very natural. It just feels like you just slide a good quality drawer. Yeah. And my guys' reasons. Okay, let's go to this main area. So let's say that if the user is clear about this search bar, let's say that the user assumes that this is gonna be some place to tap in the destination, and then let's say that where is the destination. So here I think it's also done greatly. Once I click this search bar, this panel is expanded, and then there's some extra stuff that pops up, and those extra stuff actually includes the recent search and also the nearby stuff. So under nearby, we can see there are COVID-19 vaccines, restaurants, gas station, and fast food. I'm not sure that whether those 4 categories are based on some data analysis, or it's just based on the designer's intuition about what the user wants to search nearby. So that part I'm just very curious. Okay. Browser by publisher, editor's picks, 24 hours. We can explore those stuff later. But let's say that if the user wants to find out the closest Walmart. So as I said, I just assume that this is a main use case that the user wants to do. So that's probably not the real use case. If I'm really the designer for this Apple map, and then I probably really want to figure out what's the main use case and use it as a thread or as a guide to test my app, whether it's fulfilling the user's need. So right now, as we can only assume it, right? So we assume that the user wants to figure out what's the closest Walmart. And then once the user tap in the Walmart, and we can see that there's a list of Walmarts shows up. In the, I think first of all, okay, the first item, it has a grayish icon so that it clearly indicates it's different than all the other ones. And all the other ones are just the exact Walmart, exact place. And someone has this handbag icon, someone has this glossary icon. So I'm curious what's the difference between those icons and how to categorize those icons. Because for Walmart, you probably can categorize in some way, but if there's some places hard to categorize, whether it's necessary to categorize, the places, the Walmart into different kinds of Walmart. What's the value of providing this kind of categorization? I mean, we cannot just, I think based on the simplicity theory that if there's something that is not necessary, we should remove it, right? So I'm just curious, what's the purpose of those icons? What's the value it provides? And also, just as I mentioned, if the main use case is like the user wants to find out the closest Walmart, and then what's the important metrics for them to pick the Walmart they want to go? As I said, distance, right? So sounds like distance is the reasonable metrics. But that's just one use case. Or is it like other kind of metrics will affect it? I think here is doing greatly, is showing whether it's closed or it's open. So I think this is very interesting, or let's say that very important once we are designing. So map is a feature where it provides functionality allowing the user to go that place, right? So the design question for the map application is usually like how we can let the user get to there, or how we can let the user to figure out what's the best way to get there, right? But then if we ask further design, if we ask further questions to figure out what's the design question beneath this design question, and then it will be like why the user wants to go that place. So if I'm typing Walmart, and then if this app is just like my friend, and then a friend should be able to predicting, okay, this guy is going to Walmart, and then probably means she wants to go grocery. Then whether it's open or closed is very important. So even though she just asking me how she can get there, but I should also tell her, hey, I guess you're going there for grocery, but it's closed now. Are you sure that you want to go there? So I think here is doing greatly, it's somehow trying to predict why the user wants to go there, and also provides necessary information, and allowing the user to make a choice, about whether they want to go there, and if they want to go there, which one they want to go. But if that's really the case, I think those metrics should be highlighted rather than just put some like plain grayish text, which is not prominent at all. And it's really hard for the user. It's not, I mean, like, hard is probably a strong word. I would say that it's just it would be better that it can stand out more. And then the user, oh, yeah. I think the order is switched a little bit, right? But let's just focus on other part. Let's click this search nearby. So the search nearby is actually providing still the same list of Walmarts, but it also shows me their location, physical location on the map. It's almost like a different way of showing the result. And also we can see that here the result is showing both on the map and also on the list, but list is not that prominent. And the hierarchy here is doing greatly, hierarchy of the metrics. So, but why it doesn't put the miles prominent? I don't know. It probably based on their user research, but I'm just curious. So if I'm the designer, I will be very curious about what are the metrics the user really care about once they are trying to pick a Walmart to go. And here, we can see that it's showing that 18 results are found, and below that is the list of Walmart. It has the stars, and it has the images. That's still the case whether image is important or not. And also we see that the icon is gone, right? So why we have that categorized icons, in the previous screen. Oh, if I close it, and then everything will be gone. Okay, I think here the animation, the interaction is doing greatly. It's very smooth. And also there's a subtle animation. It's like once I zoom in a map, and then the list just get collapsed, so that it doesn't really bother the user to play in this map. And also, I think, yeah, here it is very. Yeah, once I click this little orange icon, and then the icon just get expanded, and we see the further details about the Walmart. I think that's also doing nicely. So all those smooth transition of the animation is great. It makes the user to have a clear feeling about their what's the feedback of their action, so they know that their action is executed. The click is just done correctly and done perfectly. That's why that they see this orange bubble just pops up, right? And on the other hand, I would say that this smooth transition actually it tells the user the visual feedback, but it doesn't really bother the user too much. It doesn't interrupt the user's mindset because it's just so smooth. And another thing here is it has a direction, 8 minutes drive. And we can see that it just puts drive as a default selection. It doesn't provide the walk or bus. I'm also curious whether this is based on the research result. It's like the main use case is driving there. But then I'm curious for the secondary use case, if the user wants to walk there, and then will the user get confused about this button? It's like, there's no choice for me to walk there. So that's something that I probably want to do a little bit of research on. And let's say that I click direction, and boom, okay, I can see different options of the whether you're driving or whether you're walking or you're gonna take a bus is here. What's it called? option of I don't know. I don't know how I call it, just a different way of getting there. Okay, so and then it just the information hierarchy is consistent from the previous Walmart list. It has the overall title over here and showcase like what the user is seeing here. The user is seeing different ways getting to Walmart, and then below that just the different route. And then it just comes to another question. It's still the same question as the Walmart stuff. It's like what metrics the user really care about once they are choosing the route. So they're choosing the route based on the how long time it takes, or based on whether there's some like too many traffic lights or fewer traffic lights, or it's based on whether there's some, I don't know, some great scene, on the road. Because I just assume if it's a road trip planning case, and then probably that's the most important thing, whether there's some great, great like scenes they can visit during the trip. So and then but visually I think everything is doing greatly. We can see that it has this light shadow for all of those panels, and also for this little tab it has the nice shadow, so that's great. And another thing I just noticed is like for the bus, the route is using a dash line to represent, it's using a dash line to represent the route. But for all the others, like walk and drive and maybe bus, is using the bluish line. So I'm just wondering what's the reason for that, and why the bus one is so different from the other. So personally, I don't have a clear answer for that. And I think visually here is doing greatly, because the go button is huge and it's very prominent, so that you will never miss it, right? And also it's using a green color, which is very neutral. It indicates something that positive. So, and also it has the fastest route for the first option. So that's why this one is somehow like recommended. Then it's also, if that's the case, then it assumes the user will care the time it consumes, mostly. And if that's the case, why don't it just have this recommendation reason more prominent, so that the user can just make a choice immediately, rather than to read through all the information carefully. So yeah, I think user don't like to make choice. They probably have some idea in their mind why they want to make a choice, but no one really like to make a hard decision. Everyone just wants to receive an answer which sounds like very reasonable. So, and then let's just try the first one.
Starting route to Walmart Supercenter.
Yeah, here.
Head southwest on Summershore Court, then turn left onto Somerton Drive.
It's gone. Okay. I think on the previous screen, we just noticed there's a little left arrow, right? So I think that part is done differently from Google Map. If we go Google Map, it actually shows, maybe we can just compare it. Yeah. Let's see.
Head northeast on Summershore Court, then make a U-turn. 20.
Oh, okay, it doesn't have it. But I can tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, well, here we go. So it shows you the next step. I guess it's the next step is to turn left at Somerton Drive. So this still comes back to the original question. So here, what's the main purpose for this? So why the user wants to use this screen? So what's their need? What's the goal they want to achieve? They want to figure out how to drive there, right? So if that's the case, so whether it's important to showing the next step is one question, and if if that answer is yes, the user cares about the next step, then is this stuff visually clear to the user? So I think in Google Map, the way they're doing it is like they have this then, yeah, we see it, then turn right. And it doesn't really tell you that which road that you need to turn right or turn left. It just tell you, hey, next step you should turn left or turn right. But here it just it doesn't have this then, and then I'm just curious whether the user is smart enough, or they will get confused for 1 second. So, and on the other hand, I would say regarding to the information hierarchy here, it has the three big numbers over there. Visually, it's very clear, it's very beautiful, but it doesn't have a clear hierarchy, right? So if let's say that if we just need to provide one thing to the user, what will be the thing that most important? I think in Google Map is doing greatly. It's just showing that how long time. And it just makes the distance and then arrival time like less prominent. But here, as everything is so big, and then it just it's hard for the user to really consume the information. It's too much information. So, and then on the other hand, I would say that Google Map is doing it greatly by by having this greenish background, but we know that that's the color from Google. But then I'm curious whether this black background, on this black map is showing enough visual hierarchy to the user so that the user, can read through everything clearly. I think the one way that I can tell the designer is trying to make everything clear by hiding some information on the map. Because on Google Map, the way they are doing, on Google Map, we can see that there are so many roads name and so many little text, on the map. And that's just also very interesting. Like, will the user really care about the name of those relevant rows or not? And in Apple Map, actually, it doesn't really show it in this way. It actually shows a few roads which are somehow related to this route, and for all the other roads, and Apple Map just hide them. So that's a difference. I would say that if I'm the designer, I can see that both approaches have some pros and cons, and then I probably will do some user interview and to let the user to pick like which one they feel less distracted and which one they feel like clear once they're driving. Once they're driving, I'm just trying to emphasize the when and where is really important once we do all kinds of interview or all kinds of user tests. Because if I'm just holding it, I can give so many opinions. But if I'm driving, and then the experience will be totally different. Yeah. So, and the end button is very prominent. It's huge. Is just as some thumb accessible area. That's good. And the route, and also it has 2 steps ending. I think that's also different from Google. Yeah, from Google you just end it and end it. I think in Apple Map it's doing great by, first of all, once you are
Starting route to Walmart Supercenter.
go someplace, it only
Head southwest on Summer Shore Court.
only
Then turn left onto Somerton Drive.
I only have 2 steps to allowing the user to go to a route. But on Google Map, I remember there are more steps, if I'm correct. Yeah, direction.
Head
Start.
southwest
Oh,
on Summer
sorry.
Shore Court towards Somerton
My
Drive.
mistake.
Then turn left onto Somerton Drive.
Still 2 steps.
24-hour fitness may be closed. Head southwest on
Interesting. 2 steps. Okay, there are 2 steps, but here, sorry, it's only yeah, just forget that part. So that's my mistake. But anyway, so for the ending root feature is using 2 steps. I'm just curious whether this is also based on the user research result. It's like the user will accidentally click this end sometimes. That's why that they're doing this design. So yeah, that's pretty much for today's app critic. And yeah, see you next time.